Hello and welcome to Bendigo IPTV again, and our look at the federal election as it might affect Bendigo this year. My pleasure again today to be joined by Megan Purcell. Hi Megan.
Hi Dennis, thank you for having me.
You're the candidate for the Liberal Party in the federal seat of Bendigo, running up against Lisa Chester's Megan. And there's been a bit happen since we last caught up. We've only met you the once so far.
Indeed.
I guess I almost thought we were going to have another Ronda Rousey-Holmes bout there at one stage in the Ultimate Fighting Championships. When Lisa Chester's come out, I think it was in February, and commented that the farmer wants a wife thing, the fact that the Libs had chosen you as a candidate, having come off the show, indicated a level of hypocrisy around marriage equality and what about farmer wants a husband and that sort of thing. I just wondered, because you'd only just put your toe in the water when first we met, how's your experience been so far, and how are you handling that sort of personal criticism?
Some personal criticism always comes with the job, Dennis, but look, I was really disappointed in that comment. I think that was made after my opponent had said that she wanted a fair fight, so to come out straight off the bat with a personal attack was quite a surprise, and certainly I've made every effort to make sure that, you know, this fight is a battle on policy, and it's a battle on where we stand and who we represent, rather than any personal attacks. And I'll continue to fight it out that way. I think that's important. And people are sick of the whinging, they're sick of the negativity, and they're sick of that level of attack. So that's what I'm hearing, and certainly my focus is not to play that game. So I hate to disappoint you, but no UFC battle here.
Good answer. We'll get to the budget shortly too, Megan, but more immediate for Bendigo, or for this electorate anyway, has been the Murray-Goulburn debacle up there over the last few days of the week. We've had the share price drop 42% roughly. We've had, I think, 3 directors now go, including the managing director. There's been talk in the press of the potential for up to 300 job losses due to what's happening. We have dairy farmers already battling through dry conditions, you know, with feeding cattle and water and buying water and things. Now faced in some cases with $100,000 to $120,000 they've got to find to pay back what they've already been paid for the milk. Barnaby Joyce has copped a bit of criticism here for not doing enough. Are you copping that in the area out there from the electors, or what were you hearing that on the ground, and what should be done?
Dennis, I've had some friends that have been affected by this, and you know, it has been just a tragedy for them, and my heart has gone out to my mates. It's been awful, and it's good to see some positivity come out of it as well. You know, we've seen a whole lot of a work around the hashtag Dairy Love and showing some dairy love, with lots of people getting out there and supporting buying dairy products, which is great, and I'm fully behind that. So I have, on a personal level, been able to reach out and say, look, you know, you're doing a good job, guys, and keep it up. I think we'll see more to come in this space. These guys are struggling, and we need to get behind them and support them as much as we can. You can
go back to what's happened with the car industry here in Victoria. But the idea that somebody would come in and bail everybody out with a taxpayer cheque, is that something you would favour, or what can Barnaby Joyce and what should Barnaby Joyce be doing about this to prevent it from becoming a really big problem and an ongoing problem?
Yeah, Dennis, we need to make sure that any solution we come up with is something that is, to use the buzzword, sustainable, but it's something that will work in the long term and make sure that the industry can really find its feet in a really strong, positive way. So what I'd be advocating for is an approach that involves talking to those affected, that involves actually getting out to the community in finding out what needs to happen and how we can work with them, rather than riding roughshod over, you know, anyone's businesses and insisting that they take a particular course of action. I think it's about making sure we listen and work together.
A lot of people talking about Q&A this week. Did you see, and Duncan was on Q&A, did you happen to catch that one at all?
I did indeed, and I tell you what, he was very articulate and very impressive in making his point.
Well, Keith Sutherland and I have had a conversation this morning on Head to Head about the fact that we both said, or agreed, that Duncan, we don't agree on a lot of things, we both agreed that Duncan probably came up with a line that most politicians would kill for. It was such a disarming response to someone suggesting to him that, well, he's lucky because he doesn't have to pay any tax really, because he's in such a low wage earning bracket. So the point made was, well, you wouldn't be paying much tax, if any tax anyway. To have young Duncan then come back in such a humble, honest, he had no sense of presentation, he wasn't trying to grandstand, it was just honest and from the heart, to make the point, And he said straight out, I pay tax every time I go to the supermarket or get in my car. What was your response to that? I mean, do you think, whether it be Turnbull or Shorten, how in touch are they with people like Duncan? And there's a hell of a lot of Duncans out there on the street.
There sure are, Dennis, and that response was true. And, I'm just a regular, ordinary person giving this a go. I can't put myself precisely in Duncan's shoes, but certainly I've felt that myself. I own a small business, and at times I've struggled as well. And you do pay tax every time you step out the door, and every time you put fuel in the car, and every time you go to the supermarket. And it's true that half of Australians almost are actually supported on welfare, so that they get more benefits from the government than they actually pay in any tax, and that's a huge amount. But we need to make sure that we direct those resources to those people who need it the most, so that we're providing support to those who are really struggling. Because I tell you what, I know many of them, and I'm talking to many of them on the street, and it is something that we need to think about seriously.
You say that, what are people on the street saying to you? I'd be really interested, because you're talking about door knocking when last we met. When you meet the average voter out there on the street in this electorate, what is it that they're saying to you? What are the key things that they're complaining or that they're worried about?
There is a strong sense of disengagement. I'm not going to lie with you there, Dennis. People are frustrated at politics. They're frustrated at this business as usual. They are frustrated that as you said, politicians can seem out of touch. There's plenty of people in Parliament who probably haven't felt some of that pain that people such as Duncan have. So that's something that people are commenting to me every day, and that it's nice to have a chat to them and tell them, well, I'm from here, I grew up here, lived here, I've built a life here, and felt many of those same local issues that you guys live and breathe. And it's a good way to find actually that people connect with you, I suppose, and go from there. So that's been really great. In terms of issues, I've found jobs to be number one, and I fully agree. I strongly support a strong economy and strong jobs, because if we don't have that, then how can our region continue to grow? And we need the infrastructure here to support that continued growth. But if we don't have jobs so that our kids can go to school, go to uni, and go into those jobs, then really we're going to be facing a very dire situation.
Probably three areas, and I'll bundle them all up in the budget, that copped a lot of flack. And I'd be interested to know what your take was on these areas, because Turnbull and Scott Morrison have copped a fair bit of flack on these key areas. Sure. And I suppose, well, certainly locally, Lisa Jess has identified pensions, not enough being done for pensioners. In fact, a bit of a step backwards there. The environment, and to some extent education as well. The failure to take up all the recommendations of the Gonski review. What are your thoughts on those three areas? Environment, the education system, basically, and I'd love to know what you think of those areas.
Dennis, I guess what's frustrating here is that it is, again, business as usual. It's whinging, it's negativity. It is, how can we put a spin on things to complain and have a go? There's no sense of, well, actually, there's plenty of good things in the budget. And
but aren't people entitled to have a whinge about it? If they're doing it tough, people like Duncan, isn't that what it's all about?
Absolutely. So, and you're right. And look, pensioners are doing it tough. But there's 171,500 of them who will actually get at least $30 more added to their pension as a result of the budget. There are 50,000 pensioners who will move from a part-time pension to a full-time pension as a result of the budget. And on top of that, there is nobody who is currently receiving any kind of income support payment who will then subsequently lose the energy supplement, which I believe is what you're referring to. So they will continue to receive that supplement. And I think that this kind of scaremongering that we hear, it's frustrating and it's not okay in my mind. There are plenty of arguments to be had, but we need to fight a fair battle, and we need to be making sure that we get our story straight. So I want to be clear on that no doubt there's so many people doing it tough, but in fact, there are many pensioners who will in fact find that their pension goes up as a result of the budget. And in fact, with the energy supplement that we are removing for those people who are about to go on to income support, that if you look at what the ALP is proposing, they're in fact proposing to reintroduce a similar thing to the carbon tax that energy supplement was designed to compensate for, but without the compensation. So
is that message getting out there then?
I don't believe it is, Dennis, and perhaps that's something that we need to work on and make sure that the story is set straight. So I'm glad that I could do that today.
The environment, a huge issue for a lot of people, and I mean, my own personal view is that the environment to some extent will be a driver for the Greens having a huge groundswell of support for the Senate. So I just wonder why wouldn't that have been a major issue for Turnbull, given his track record and his commentary in the past on the environment? I know from social media a lot of people expressing disappointment and surprise. Well, gee, Turnbull was environment friendly. Why do you think there was enough done, or was there anything done for the environment?
Yeah, and fair point, Dennis. There, that we need to make sure again that we've got things right. So there is a lot of work to be done in that area, and I am very passionate about the environment myself. As an individual, I think that it's something that potentially hasn't had enough attention and focus from my side of Parliament as the community would like it to see, and that that's something I'd like to fight for and advocate for. So I can tell you locally, stay tuned, watch this space. There will be announcements in relation to the environment. I am fighting hard to work for some local projects because locally it is something that people are telling me they do care about, that I care about, and that I want to see, and the community wants to see more happen. So stay tuned is what I can say.
Sounds promising or interesting. We'll look forward to this space.
Yes, we'll lock in some details and let you know as soon as it happens.
Absolutely. When last we met, Megan, it was very early days for you. You'd only just won the nomination. You've had some time on the ground now. You're knocking on doors. You're obviously meeting people. You're facing roughly about a 2% margin with Lisa Chester's. Realistically, when last we met too, Turnbull was absolutely killing them in the polls, and it would very much look like a coalition landslide victory if they'd gone to an election then. That's a lot different now. What sort of a vibe are you getting out there, and where do you personally see yourself sitting at the moment in terms of being able to either narrow that margin or topple Lisa Chester's?
Oh, Dennis, that'd be one for the pollsters, I reckon.
No, that's one for you.
But certainly out there in the community, I'm doing my very best to just get around and speak to as many people as possible. And in relation to that, people are grateful, I think, funnily enough, when they meet you and find that you express an interest in who they are and what they care about, that there's a sense that politicians don't care about them, aren't one of them, aren't connected to them. And the number of times I've knocked on someone's door and had them say, oh, gee, no one's ever actually come and spoken to me before, has been substantial. So that's something that I really appreciate the chance to go and do. And it's really how I inform myself and I know what the issues are out there.
That's why I reckon you're better placed than the pollsters to get a vibe for what's happening out there, because you're actually meeting the people on the ground.
Oh, I hope so.
Rather than, the phone call when you're trying to watch something on TV. Annoys the hell out of me.
Indeed.
To finish up then, Megan, I guess we've seen Lisa with a level of support, Lisa Chester's, from her Labor colleagues in terms of shadow ministers and so on through, even her early election. Are you likely to get much support from ministerial colleagues and that in the party that would show any interest in coming to Bendigo? Because I have to say, my own view is that the narrower the margin here, whether you win or Lisa wins, that if the margin ends up 0.1%, I reckon it'll be a win for Bendigo no matter who gets in, because I think that's when people in Canberra start really looking at Bendigo and saying, well, hell, what can we do there to win that seat? So I'm stating that up front. Sure. But are you likely to get much support, do you think, from Canberra?
Look, I've had quite a bit of support already, which has been great, and several ministers have committed to coming down to Bendigo to visit, to see some of the good things that are happening here and also some of the issues and problems and work on how we can solve them. So we have had, for example, Greg Hunt commit to our environment plan here, and I was talking about that earlier, that we will be putting out a plan for the region that does have some really solid projects in it, and it was great to have Greg up here. I've also had the opportunity to head up to Canberra and meet with the Prime Minister and have a discussion with him on some of the local issues and what's important here in Bendigo. And it was great to see his level of interest and knowledge, asking me about, things like infrastructure and water and what's happening out at the Ravenswood Interchange, say, that we've funded, and some of our local projects. So that was fantastic too. And you can absolutely 100% expect that there will be more ministers coming to visit, and that you'll see a bit more happening in that space as the election campaign rolls on. But certainly my own attitude is that it is all about what's happening out there in the ground. It is all about talking to normal people, regular citizens, people, very much like me before I took on this role, who have ideas and problems and want solutions from those who are, in charge of representing their area. So that's what I'll be looking to do.
You say about taking on this role, what's the personal toll been like in terms of, well, you're a small business person for a start. How are you juggling a small business with facing up to running a long campaign?
Dennis, what a challenge that one is. Absolutely. And it's tough. It is. I don't have the benefit of, I guess, a whole lot of union support or a role in a union to roll on into something like this. I have a small business that needs to continue to keep running, and I'm lucky that my family and some of my friends have really stepped into that gap. I've done the call out for volunteers, and it's great to have people volunteering to help on the campaign, and that's fabulous. But to have those guys also step up and help me out in the business has been fabulous as well, because it lets me concentrate on what I'm doing, getting out there in the community.
Well, great to catch up again, Megan, and I'll be interested to see how you. Well, let's hope you don't look 10 years older again when we catch up next time, because you'll probably be halfway through the campaign then.
Indeed.
But good luck, and certainly reassuring to hear that you're so much making an effort to be in touch with people on the street, because I personally think that's what's lacking in politics today, generally from all sides. So well done there.
Well, I figure, the things that frustrate me are probably things, and they do sound like they're things that are reflected in the community. And, if you've got an issue, get in there and try and change it, and that's what I'm trying to do. So it's great to be here and great to have the opportunity, Dennis. Thank you.
Good luck, Megan, and thanks for joining us again today. We'll catch you next time.
No worries.
And we'll catch you next time too. Thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to bringing you regular updates on progress in the federal election as it impacts on Bendigo.